Hello, everybody, and welcome to Evan Writes. This is going to be a rather short video this week because I'm heading out on vacation here pretty soon, and I wanted to save the more lengthy content to be edited properly until after I get back. So what am I going to do this week? I'm going to go ahead and go over my writing and reading goals for 2020. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with my reading list for 2020. Now this list is going to be a little bit shorter than the actual quantity of books that I will end up reading in 2020 now that I've started to get into a pattern of how I plan to be reading. And I've been reading a lot more than I have been able to in the last few years, and it's been super nice. I've just been really enjoying it. It's been helping my writing out a lot. I just love it. I'm so glad I've been able to make time for it again. So I'm just going to go ahead and cover the books that I plan to read this coming year that I already own. The rest of them I will go ahead and review in future book hauls. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and continue with The Wise Man's Fear. Now, I'm taking a break from Patrick Rothfuss for a little bit because, as you probably read in my review before, it's just, I feel like there wasn't a whole lot of progression in the first book, even though there was a lot of mythology and stuff that I liked. I'm excited to learn more about it, which I hope is in this book because it's 300 pages longer. And that's the reason I'm taking a break, is because it's another 1,000-page book that I'd have to put time into. And I'm going to weave it out a little bit longer. I'm going to read this probably halfway through the year. And then in August, when the new book comes out, I'm going to go ahead and read that and finish off the trilogy as long as it does release. I understand there have been problems with its release dates before, but hopefully this won't be the case this time. The next thing I plan to read is The Republic of Thieves. Now, this is the third book in the Lies of Lamora, I would say trilogy, but I've come to understand that there will actually be a lot more books. This is going to be a series that goes ongoing, and I'm kind of okay with that because I enjoy the characters, and I'm hoping that this book is really good because the premise of it is finally going to introduce his love interest, or his old love interest that you hear about early on in the first book that you never actually get to meet until hopefully this book. So I'm excited for that. The next one, I'm going to go ahead and try to catch up on my Brandon Sanderson and read Warbreaker. I'm currently reading through Elantris right now, and I'm enjoying it, though it is very obvious that it's an earlier work of his. His writing style isn't quite as defined as it was in, say, in Mistborn, but Warbreaker was a later book anyway, so I'm hoping to enjoy it a little bit more, though I am starting to get excited for Elantris and what's happening. I'm more excited about how I can think about how this fits into his whole Cosmere, but you know, that's just the kind of stuff readers do when they start to like an author. Anyway, continuing on with Brandon Sanderson, I plan to read The Way of Kings and the rest of the Stormlight Archive that is out. From what I understand, book 4 will be coming out in this coming year, so that'll be 4 rather lengthy books that I have to work my way through. 5 if you count A Wise Man's Fear. Now, on top of that, I also plan to read the last 2 books of the second trilogy in the Mistborn saga, though there is also going to be a 4th of that, so it's going to be, what is it, a quadrology? I have no idea what it is when there's 4 books. I know when there's 2, when there's 1, when there's 3, and when there's 5, but I have no idea when there's 4. If any of you know, go ahead and let me know. Anyway, I plan to read that as well, finish off Mistborn Era 2. I've read the first one pretty recently. It was the 3rd time trying to read through it, and this time I pushed through, and I really enjoyed it. I might do a review on it later on. Anyway, as far as books that I have planned to read, those are them. I will eventually read more and get more book hauls, but if you have any suggestions on other good books I can read based on my reading interest that you've seen so far, go ahead and let me know. I really love science fiction and fantasy, and you know, just anything that's a really good story. It doesn't really matter what genre it's in. Moving on to my writing goals for 2020. Now, as I mentioned in some videos before, I was working through a novel that I had been writing, and I had planned to finish it within 6 months. Lately, I've realized that I am really more of a planner and a plotter, and this book, I was trying to write parts of it with a discovery writing method, with a pantser method, and I find it just doesn't necessarily work for me, so I'm going to have to take some time off of that and go and rework my outline and figure out how to make the events go back together. So my plan for next year is to get that outline finished before the end of this year and readdress that novel coming the next year and start my 6-month plan over again and go from start to finish with that outline. The way I outline, I usually have chapter by chapter, pretty much the overview of what I want to happen. It doesn't have to be too specific unless I just have really cool ideas I want to remember for later on. But as long as I know what's supposed to happen in each chapter, I'm pretty good to write it and discovery write from that point to the next chapter because I know where they need to get to. So I need to go back and do that, and I was just trying something new this time and it did not work out for me, so I'm going to go ahead and go back to my normal method of writing. So that'll be a 6-month plan, and from there I'm going to take a month break, and then I'm going to do my own first pass of editing. From there I'm going to seek out beta readers and all that, and by the end of the year I hope to have the novel ready to submit to queries. Now that's a lot of work, but I really want to get a novel out soon, and I'm hoping to traditionally publish at least my first novel because it's just a dream I've always had. I don't really care too much about the money. I just want to hold my physical book and know that I went through a publishing house to do it. It's something that a lot of authors share, I think, and in the future I'll probably, publish indie publishing some other books, but for my first I want to see if I can get through and publish it in a publishing house. Aside from that, I do have another story that I will be outlining during that process. Any days where I start to feel slow and can't really get the words out, I plan to go and work on the outline for this other book. It's not going to be set in the same world. I'm going to have my first debut novel be as much of a one-off as I can get it to be, with potential to be a series because I like the world and the magic system I created for it. But if not, this next book will also be a standalone that I can make into a series if my first book is received well. But those are my plans. I plan to finish one book and be working on the outline for another, and while things are going through revision processes, I will be working on that second book during that last 6 months, but I won't be going at quite the pace due to the revisions of the other book. So I don't have necessarily a timeline that I want to finish this other book by. Anyway, thanks for listening. If you guys like this content and you want to see more, go ahead, ring that bell, subscribe, and I will be hitting you up with some more content coming up next week. I'm going to start on writing advice videos based on what I've learned so far and based on my time in the animation industry and storyboarding and working on stories for films and short films. So I have experience working on projects that tell stories. So I plan to pull in a little bit of my knowledge from those areas into writing advice, which will hopefully be a little bit more interesting than copying the template somebody else has already used. Though some of the information might be the same because storytelling in all mediums is still very similar. Anyway, thanks for listening. I will catch you on the other side.